Well, you're watching Good Morning Britain now. Sinn Féin's Michelle O'Neill has promised to serve everyone equally as she made history as Northern Ireland's first nationalist First Minister.
Yeah, she's the first member of Sinn Féin to hold the top job and has also said that she expects a referendum on unifying Ireland in the next 10 years. Westminster have said it's not on the horizon. We'll get into that in just a moment. Michelle O'Neill first joins us in the studio. Good morning to you, Michelle. Thank you.
Good morning to you all.
It's a historic moment. I wonder how the last few days have been for you.
A bit of a whirlwind,
yeah.
if the truth be told. I came into post on Saturday. We're now on, not even sure, is this Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday now, yeah.
Thursday, so it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We've had our first executive. We're off to a good start. And I think everybody's coming at it with a good will and a good heart to try to do our best collectively for the people that we collectively serve. But certainly a huge historic moment in time and probably a very emotional moment for a lot of people. This is a day that my parents and grandparents thought would never come about, just with the nature of how the North was founded. So it's a big, big day. It's an historic moment. It reflects the change that's happening. But it's a very positive moment also because I pride myself on being the Good Friday Agreement generation, somebody who was gifted peace, someone who was gifted the opportunity for us to be able to work together in a different sort of space. And that's what I'm committed to doing for the tenure that I have ahead of me. Big challenges, but I'm certainly up for all of that.
You're holding so much emotion, aren't you? It's very interesting that you talk about the Good Friday Agreement, I think, because there are so many people who will not have been born for when a lot of the things that Good Friday Agreement were put into place for, you know, existed. So therefore, they're holding so much hope, but they will also have on all sides the weight of history. And symbolism is always so key, isn't it, with any politics of that part of the world. And when you use the term North of Ireland and Northern Ireland in the same breath, that must have been something you were conscious of. What did you want people to take from that on all sides?
Well, I think one of the beauties of the Good Friday Agreement was that you can be both British, Irish, both or none. And I think we have to be conscious and be respectful of each other in all of our debate. We can come from completely different political aspirations. I mean, I'm an Irish person. I want to see Irish unity on my island. I want to see good relationships between our two islands. But there are many people in our society that are also with a British identity and a unionist culture. And we have to be respectful of each other and create a discourse that allows us to have mature conversations about where we think we're all going to head in the next 10 years. But I think that it's important for me, certainly, as First Minister, someone who's pledged to be a First Minister for all, including those people of a different background to my own. I think it's important that I can say that, let's be chilled about it. You know, I say North of Ireland, others say Northern Ireland. Let's just give each other the space to be comfortable in how we might come at these things. It's symbolic, probably, for a lot of people. But I think it's important just that I certainly set the tone for the conversations that we're going to have.
And you understand the symbolism of that, though? I mean, because, of course, that's something that jumps out as First Minister, the first person, and using that phrase is, you know, it's important.
It is important. It is important because it's about respect. It's about understanding that we all can be different, and it's okay.
One of the other things, I mean, there's certainly a big shift generationally in terms of how things were being done between the British Prime Minister and anybody who was leader in Northern Ireland. And you met Rishi Sunak the other day, and something that maybe wouldn't have had a few generations ago was he greeted you with a hug, Michelle.
Were you surprised?
I mean, it was quite a few people. Were
Was it one of those awkward moments where you didn't know if he was going to do it or not? How did it happen?
I was thinking about it because I know there's been a lot of conversation about it. The world needs more hugs. Like, let's be real.
Absolutely.
I come from a very different background to Rishi Sunak. I'm very critical of his politics and his approach, particularly his austerity agenda. But I can make all those points to him and also still be, you know, we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's a moment, though, isn't it, when suddenly you are greeted in that sort of environment. I think it's a reflection of the emotion that he felt like he wanted to greet you with a hug rather than a much more formal handshake.
Well, 2 years ago we fought the election. That's the election in which I pledged to be a First Minister for all, and it's taken us 2 years to get to the point where that result's finally being respected. So I think probably across everybody, the British government, the Irish government, the parties at home, everybody probably has a sense of relief in terms of we've got to this point. Certainly for me, for 2 years, not being able to take up my post and get into dealing with the day-to-day issues that people elected us to deal with, the public sector pay issues, you know, childcare. These are all things that are top of our agenda. So perhaps such a wee sense of, you know, finally we've got to this moment and now we know we have work to do.
There's a very famous moment, wasn't there, when the late Queen shook hands with Martin McGuinness. And people, I think we can see that again, and it was considered to be a huge deal that she did it. She was comfortable doing it. She wanted to do it. It was a big sign. That has been given the same weight, the hug with Rishi Sunak. Do you see it as that too?
I don't know. I don't think I really thought that much into it. I think that whenever the late Queen did what she did when she visited Ireland, and then there was a return visit from the Irish president to Britain, I think that was a moment in which there was a real deliberate attempt on her part to try to heal some of the relationship breaks that we've had in the past. So it was about reconciliation. It was about our two islands, you know, being able to have healthy relationships. So I think both herself and then also obviously King Charles as well has furthered her work. And obviously I wish him well in terms of his journey that he's going through at the moment.
You mentioned some of the other issues, public sector pay, queues for waiting lists, for the health service, the things you want to tackle. But you have also talked about wanting a referendum. To unite, reunite, whichever way you look at it, the island of Ireland. How do you bring everybody with you? And some would say that the other issues you mentioned you want to focus on are more important.
But I think we can do two things at the one time. I mean, this is the beauty of the Good Friday Agreement. At the heart of it is power sharing, so that's just making the politics in the north of Ireland work. But alongside that, the principle of consent, so constitutional change will only ever happen whenever the people decide. But I think we can have good power sharing, deal with the day-to-day issues like public sector pay, waiting lists, childcare, tackling violence against women. We can do all of those things at the same time having a mature relationship about the future and what that looks like. That's what the Good Friday Agreement was voted. That's why I voted for the Good Friday Agreement. There is this democratic, peaceful way towards Irish unity. I'm going to pursue that whilst also doing the day-to-day things of public sector issues which we need to work together on.
We had Chris Heaton-Harris, who is the Northern Ireland Secretary, on the show on Monday, and we put that question to him about having a poll on unification, reunification. This is what he had to say.
Are we looking at a poll on this, maybe within the next 10 years?
I'd be surprised if you had one in my lifetime.
The Northern Ireland Act, which gave effect to the Good Friday Agreement, states that a poll will be called by yourself if at any time it appears likely that a majority of those voting would express a wish that Northern Ireland should cease to be part of the UK and form part of a united Ireland. You've just ruled that out for 10 years.
Yeah, because I think Michelle says it should be within a decade. I don't see those conditions coming based on the current polling, current voting intentions, and a whole host of other factors.
Actually, you've just ruled it out in your lifetime. How can you possibly know?
Yeah, I don't think it will happen.
So he's not convinced it will happen. The current polling as it stands suggests that it would fail. 51% would say no, 30% are in favour, 15% don't know, 5% wouldn't vote. I mean, that's a significant shift you need to try and find for the Northern Ireland Secretary to have to call the vote, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think he's ignoring the reality. My election speaks to the change that's happening across the island. I mean, I said at the start that my parents and grandparents never believed this day would come, that this change would ever come about, because the North was built in such a way that someone from my background was never supposed to be in the position of First Minister. You know, all the old certainties of the past, of that state that they were born into, are gone. So I actually think my appointment actually does reflect the change that's happening. I mean, we're in for a big year ahead across the two islands, to be fair, in terms of the electoral contest that we're going to go. We obviously are contenting to be in Dublin, in government in Dublin also. So there are big changes ahead. But I think we can do all of this in a mature way. I think Chris Heaton-Harris, with all due respect, that's a bit of an ostrich mentality, sticking your head in the sand and refusing to see what's actually happening all around you. So let's move forward with, you know, I said in my acceptance speech, let's move forward together. Let's walk this two-way street. Let's have power sharing work and let's make it work. Let's show the public that we have their backs when it comes to the day-to-day issues, and let's work together on those things. And then also let's be respectful of each other to have a debate about what does the constitutional future look like for us all, and how do we find a way to do better for both those of an Irish identity, those of a British identity who share our island, because it's our place, it's our home, and we have work to do to make it work better for us all.
Yes, there's a lot of domestic things that you need to sort out as well on the agenda, which undoubtedly you're going to get your hands on as soon as you can get back there and get on, because there's a lot of ceremonial bits and pieces I'm sure you're facing at the minute. But we really appreciate you joining us this morning, Michelle O'Neill. It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
See you.